Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday and it's the weekend. This is Multifamily Unplugged. I hope you are enjoying your morning. And I really hope you had a great week and it was productive for you. You know, here we are into the second quarter of the year already. And one of the questions I'll ask is, hey, how productive were you the first quarter? Are you on track? Are you working towards your goals? Have you been intentional about what you're trying to accomplish? You know, by this time, you probably are thinking, wow, I might be a little behind or a little bit ahead. Whichever side of that aisle you fall on, you know, there's always time to make up and catch up, right? And so I just want to encourage you, be intentional as you set your tasks for today. Hey, if you're new to the show, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank the person that told you about us or invited you. Do us a solid. Would you please smash the subscribe button, like us, love us, help us grow. Tell somebody else about it. You know, today we're going to jump into some really fascinating thoughts around maintenance on your multifamily projects. Hey, my guest today is Guillermo Salazar. He's from Calgary, and he is with IrisCX, and they solve the maintenance problems on your multifamily assets. So we're going to dig in today and talk a little bit about what some of those problems are, because being an owner operator, I have some of them, and we're going to talk about the solution that IrisCX has for those issues. So let me bring our guest in. Guillermo, morning.
Morning, Mike. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good. Good to see you. It's you know, I know that we've been on and off a couple times. I was just on your podcast a week or so ago, and we get to continue to build that relationship. Which, you know, I always tell people, I say, hey, we're in a business that is all built on relationships. It's about who you know and the systems and processes you can help others with and gain from others. So I'm excited to talk with you today about what Iris offers and what you guys do in the marketplace. So
yeah, we love chatting about it, obviously, and appreciate you and all the work that you do to kind of just raise the floor on everybody that's following you and that you coach with. I mean, people have such untapped potential, and we just need a little bit of guidance sometimes. So thank you for all the work that you do for everybody in the marketplace.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, so before the show, we were just talking a little bit about your trip to Tennessee. I know you're up in Calgary, but your trip to Tennessee, you kind of avoided the Tornado Alley a little bit, huh?
I think so. I mean, well, we were a little bit, there's certainly some weather that's hitting down the area right now. And my in-laws are still there. We were down there. My oldest plays college golf. He's playing in a tournament on Monday, Tuesday. So we got a chance to watch him, try and watch him once or twice a year. And then, but the weather was terrible. It was like 45, 50 on Monday. It was miserable. Wow. And that's not the weather we were prepared for. And then the turnaround is it was like 80 yesterday. And then towards the evening, it was dropping fast. You could feel the humidity coming in. And, you know, when you look at those clouds, the clouds it's still on the surface. The clouds are racing across the top. You're just like, oh boy, this looks ominous. Yeah. And then you get the news alerts and you're like, oh my, what's going to happen here? And so, of course, we were flying last night and we were just happy that the plane landed. And so was the staff, the flight crew. And then we were happy to take off. And so was the flight crew.
Yeah. You know, I bet the pilots get a rush out of that drive. You know, I couldn't be, you know, I have a tough time with heights, but I don't mind flying. And I have to imagine the pilots get a real rush out of driving through that, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, like they were expecting like 7 to 10 inches of rain.
Jeez.
Like, that's crazy. And then the winds and everything. So we were quite happy when we landed. 3 tornadoes had touched down the day before. And so we were just kind of feeling, you know, lucky to find that bucket of window, whether it was cool or not, though the boys could play golf. And then everyone got in and out safe. So that's the important part.
Yeah. So talk about, so your son plays golf, right? Is he at Tennessee? Is he?
He's
at
in
school?
Pennsylvania. He's in
Okay.
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he played in a semi-pro deal, or?
No, it was a college tournament. So college golf is split into 2 seasons. There's the first half you play in the fall, and second half you play in the spring. This is their second tournament of the spring. They played in North Carolina the week before that, and so Tennessee, and then now they're going to have they play mostly in Pennsylvania area. They're part of that North Atlantic Conference.
Okay.
And so they play in Connecticut next week, and then I think they're back to Michigan or Indiana. I can't remember after that.
Yeah. Yeah. How did he do?
The team did okay. He had a pretty good round on the front. He was really good tee to green. Putting was a bit of a challenge, and you know how putting is. It's a confidence. It's streaky, and so that affected his overall scores. But generally, he did pretty good. The one kid on another team shot a 61 and absolutely ran away with the field. So you got any player that shoots 61, that changes everything. So my oldest, he finished in the 70s every day, in the mid to low 70s. But when a kid shoots 61, that's the score to beat. It's tough to come back on that.
I usually always shoot in the 70s on the front.
I know that feeling.
Hey, listen, as we kick this off this morning, I always ask my guests one question, and I always say I'm going to write a book on this because I have a couple hundred answers, but I want to know in one word what best describes you personally and professionally.
I appreciate that question and the heads up to kind of think about it a bit. I'm a learner. I'm a learner, and I think that is why things like retirement scare the hell out of me. Is that like I am a feverish learner, reader, consumer, and just kind of like trying to solve the problems that I need to address by talking to other people, all those things. But every single thing I'm just trying to consume and understand and learn all the time. The status quo is not good enough for me in almost every case.
Yeah. I love that word learner, right? I said I've probably asked that question a couple hundred times of my guests, and nobody's ever said learner, which is interesting. But, I've been in the real estate space 30 years, residential, commercial, multifamily. And I think you constantly have to be learning, especially the older we get. I think the younger generation comes with more openness, more ideas. Technology is really changing a lot of things. We'll talk about that this morning. But, I think the technology and the things that you can glean from that really help you continue to learn. I always tell people, in my coaching program, I always talk to people about keep learning. I don't have all the answers. Go to other people, get other answers, right? You got to keep growing personally to grow professionally.
And I think that there's the kind of the precedent to becoming a learner is being curious. And I think you've got to be curious. It's just you're not going to survive if you're not curious. But like the follow through is the learning part of it. Like we can be curious, but not necessarily follow through on it. And that's the part that in order to learn something, you've got to be curious about it. And so I like the learner word because like I do appreciate the fact that I don't have all the answers, and I hope I never do, because the experience and journey of learning has formed who I am today. Certainly the word that you would have asked maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago would have been a different word. But I really am appreciating this time in my life to become a learner and apply those learnings in the work that we do. It just makes it so much more compelling. Yeah,
100%. Well, listen, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, about your background and what you're currently doing, what IrisCX is and does.
Sure. Wonderful. I'd love to share. So my background is, again, I came out of university and I really wanted to work, like my goal, I wanted to work for Enron. I wanted to be a natural gas trader. I had taken classes in it. I had studied it. I was, done preliminary work to be in it. And I wanted to work at Enron so bad. I had heard so many things about it. People said you should be in this business. So ultimately be a commodities trader. And that didn't work out for me. At the time when I graduated, a barrel of oil was like $9.50. Like imagine that, right? A barrel of oil is $9.50. And so energy was kind of going sideways. And then ultimately, of course, Enron unwound. But that whole, in my pursuit of trying to find that type of career, I ended up in management consulting. And really, it was a bit of a desperation attempt. I tried to find a job for like 4 or 5, 6 months. And this is back in the day where you walked in and you gave the receptionist your resume and you actually pounded the pavement. And you responded to emails and you emailed things and you tried to make it effective, but it wasn't really practical. There was no LinkedIn back then. And that era, I ended up applying for a job and interviewing for the job. And I got hired as a strategic analyst for a consulting company. And then from there, I moved into the consulting side of things, but I got a chance to learn the consulting business, the dollars and cents of it all. I built all the models, I built all the budgeting, planning, all those things. And ultimately that gave me tools on how to run a business. And I worked for the founder of this firm. And then, so I did that working for that firm. They were acquired by PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers for a while, worked overseas, worked all over North America. And then I left that firm and went on my own independent to make more money. And, did that for a number of years, then started my own consulting firm with 3 other guys. And so we grew that firm to about 65 consultants and exited that to Deloitte in a very quick burn. We did that in less than 5 years.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Like to be in the consulting space, you find yourself in this time trade-off that you're constantly deliberating about. I either spend an hour billing the customer or an hour trying to grow the business. And I've got certainty around the bill against the customer and uncertainty around the growing the business. But if I don't grow the business, then the business doesn't grow, right? And so it's like, it's this constant trade-off, and it's
a constant entrepreneurial struggle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so we were delivering projects at a consulting pace. So imagine that's like 60 hours a week, just getting that delivered, and then plus trying to grow the business. So it was a lot of work. I was lucky. I was quite young and I had good partners and we had very good clients. And so ultimately that grew, exited to Deloitte, spent some time at Deloitte, exited that, and then kind of started trying to find another problem to solve and figure out what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I was quite unhappy when I was there. I felt like, I use this expression all the time, I felt like a dolphin in a tree climbing competition. I was just expending an enormous amount of energy trying to be successful, and I wasn't moving the needle. And that created a lot of like downward depression cycle. I mean, in retrospect, I probably had a depression element to it, and really gained a lot of respect for mental health as a concept, and being to actively make myself better from a mental health perspective, and appreciate that for what it is, so I could be my best self every single day. So that meant putting myself in situations where I could be successful, and also being mindful of things that I'm vulnerable to that create downward spirals. And so just being proactive about how I can be present every single day and be the best husband, father, partner or co-founder or whatever every single day.
Yeah. And so today you're with IrisCX.
Yeah.
And what do you guys do?
So I like to frame the question in terms of the problem we solve. Because without the problem, it's kind of just pointless. And so the problem that we solve is that when resident requests, mate requests come in, they're very vague. They're like, my toilet's not working, or there's a sound. And the tools we have available today are very limited to try and solve the problem. And so we end up dispatching a tech. And that could be in a building, like in a multifamily high rise, or it can be on a truck roll, it could be a vendor. All these things we do because we don't have enough information. So even if you've got a telephone call, you're still flying blind. And the most common thing we hear all the time is we got to get some eyes on the problem. And so what IrisCX does is it allows you to see the problem before you dispatch that truck. The way our software works, I mean, everybody here, no one wants a new application. Nobody wants another login. It's very simple. You send an SMS message to a resident, they click on it, and you can see through the camera at the problem. You can hear what's going on. And when you can do that, you can troubleshoot the situation. So if it's my toilet's not working, now I can start stepping you through, hey, let's look at the shutoff valve. Turn to the left. That's left. That's right. Let's wiggle the head. You can start troubleshooting these issues remotely. So we solve the problems around that 24/7 support burden that's borne by maintenance coordinators and maintenance techs. We solve the problem around the rolling that truck for simple fixes. Like, you can't imagine how many trips are dispatched to change the battery, change the filter, to unhook the chain, to reset the GFCI. It's disgusting, because all of that is waste, and all of that has a direct impact on NOI. And so if you can go and solve 50% of your resident requests before you roll that trip in about 8 minutes, you're saving all that maintenance expense up front. When you roll a truck or send a dispatch a tech, they're only going there the one time. Imagine a resident that shows up when the tech shows up and says, hey, Mike, I'm here to fix your toilet. I've got the toilet stem that fits your toilet. I'm going to be 15 minutes to replace this part, and I'm out of here. That's it. Right? Those kind of situations.
So, one of the first questions I have, do you guys, we know multifamily split up into different asset classes, A, B, C, and D.
Sure.
Does this technology work best in one of those certain classes, or can it work across the board?
Are you ready to skyrocket your investment portfolio and leave a legacy? Are you tired of inconsistent returns received in the stock market? Do you think it may be time to take a look at alternative investment options for your portfolio? Passive investing in multifamily real estate could be that option. With no tenants, trash, or toilets, providing a solid return on an annual basis that outperforms traditional investing, also receiving a monthly or quarterly return along the way. These lower risk and secure assets are a great hedge against inflation. If you want to learn more about these types of opportunities, you can email me directly to schedule a 15-minute consultation to see if you qualify. Just email me at mike@mikemorawski.com.
I would say it depends on the luxury, I would probably not bother.
Okay.
Because luxury, if they're paying like $15,000 a month in rent, they're paying for someone to go solve that problem, and you can afford that on-site maintenance tech.
Got it.
The math gets complicated. I would say more so it's a density problem, more so than a class problem. Like class C's, people can be workforce housing. They could be very handy people that want to solve the problem. They don't have the time to wait, right? Class B, you've got a lot of things that are going wrong on these things. Like maybe it's like 90s era, maybe even 80s era buildings, and they've got unique problems to them. And then class A, that's low density. There's not enough people to staff it, and they expect to have results. So I would say it's got more to do with the density of the property. So if you can't afford to have a tech on that site because it just doesn't pencil in, or you can't afford to have enough techs on that site, or maybe you can't hire techs for that site, then you should really be considering a different way of solving the problem. And that's where we really thrive. We thrive in a low density environment across all asset classes where you're competing on price. So if you're competing on experience, like a $17,000, $15,000 rent luxury, you should just solve that problem the best possible way you solve that problem. But in low density, I'll say price-oriented markets or price takers in markets, we thrive because the resident wants a problem solved. The management company or the ownership group, they want to get this thing solved with the least amount of expenses possible, and they want to make the resident happy. That's what we enable.
So when you talk about low density, do you mean like a 30 unit complex versus that doesn't have on-site staff versus a 100 unit complex that might have on-site staff?
Yeah, like the 100-unit project is kind of a fun number to play with because like it's an average number, but rarely does there actually a 100-unit complex.
Right.
Like they're 150, they're 75s, they're 32s, right? And so
93.
like 93. Like the numbers almost rarely pencil out for that 1 to 100 to be successful. And so you take a look at or even if let's say it's a leasing up scenario on a 100-unit project, that lease up might take a number of months. So what do you do in between? How do you manage? If you've got, the first 20 residents are moving in a 100-unit complex, are you going to staff that with a full-time maintenance tech? Is that even math? Does that math work? And so like, can you find the person? Is there enough work for them to do? Or do you float between two buildings, which makes for a bad resident experience, the one you're trying to lease up? So the 1 to 100 model is an average of averages, and it doesn't really work for any property. But you can make it work if you've got, let's say, 80 units to 115 units. You either have not enough work or just a little bit too much work. But if you're in that 50 unit and lower density, like especially getting a BTR and SFR, like in those spaces, you definitely need to be able to figure out how to solve those residence requests to protect your asset, right? Because if there's a leak, you want to be able to solve that problem as fast as possible, or at least mitigate the damages. If there is if there's a shortage of people, or maybe it's a remote location, then you want to be able to batch up that work so you're solving it all the first time. The last thing you want, and I think maybe you've said it before, but you hear it all the time, is windshield time is an NOI killer.
Yep, 100%.
Because it is so unproductive. So the priority of maintenance organizations could be, let's eliminate windshield time, because that is killing our NOI. That is killing our resident experience. That's killing our technician experience.
So let me give you a scenario.
Sure.
And I talked early on, I said, hey, we're going to talk about problems, but you're going to bring a solution. So let me give you a scenario. Okay. I have 5 assets in one market.
Yep.
5 different properties, 315 units.
Okay.
I have 2 key maintenance guys and 2 make ready guys. My smallest unit is 30, or my smallest property is 30 units. I have 2 65 unit properties, a 62 unit, and a 93 unit.
All right.
Okay? So that math should equal 315, right?
I hope so. I'm not going to check.
Yeah. And so I have 100 work orders across 5 properties.
Yep.
Right. And it's silly stuff, right? My stove doesn't work. And I don't mean silly, it's never silly to the resident.
User error. It's user error.
Right. So it's, I have stoves that don't work, hot waters that's out, toilet leaks, faucet leaks, this issue. How do we solve
filters?
Right. Right. How do we solve that issue? Where, my maintenance guys focus on this property a lot today, this property tomorrow, maybe they're spread across 5 properties in one day. I think the thing, the unproductiveness, on an 8-hour day, if I get 5 hours of work out of a maintenance guy, I think that's a lot, considering they're driving property to property. They have to go pick up parts. They come back, there's a lot of downtime in the midst of there, right? Mm-hmm. How do we make them more productive and solve that issue?
Sure. So you take a look at the 4 people you've got on your team, right? So 4 for 400, you're 315, so you're kind of already over allocated, which actually perfectly represents your point of productivity. Is you're over penciled on the 1 to 100 because you've got 4 people working 300 units, right? I mean, from a staffing perspective. So you're already leaking there. So what you can do is you can do a couple things. So with our service, with Iris, or our software, sorry, you can take one of those maintenance techs, and let's say you allocate over the course of the week, you've got 80 hours of the week for those 2 maintenance techs, right? And let's say you were to allocate and service requests come in all day long, right? But they typically come in batches in the evening. Maybe they come in when the residents are there. So what I would consider or make an offer for stage one. So this is stage one, and I'll offer stage two as kind of the maturity curve. Stage one, I would allocate, maybe make available 2 hours a day of each of those maintenance techs to remotely resolve issues. And they're available to solve problems without having to diagnose it. And how we channel that is your residents can schedule with that maintenance tech for that time, because we want to drive demand to the availability of your people rather than having your people be on standby all the time, because standby is so expensive. And I know there's plenty of work to keep them not on standby, but it's because we're culturally being corrective and reactive that we do not get those efficiencies.
Right.
So I would say take those two people and say, okay, let's call Louise and Ron. Louise, you are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You are available to do remote support from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then Ron, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., you do remote support. We kind of barbell it, because that's when kind of things happen. So then at that point, they would connect with the residents that are available, that have booked with them, and take a look at the problem and seek to resolve the problem before they dispatch. And then they would begin to create the work orders. They would solve the problems all remotely. We have some customers that even if they're in a high rise, it takes a half an hour to go up and down to look at a problem in a high rise, right? You got to stop what you're doing, go up the high rise. Even if they're in the maintenance office and it's on floor 22, they will look at the problem remotely before they go up the elevator.
So let me see if I understand this and hopefully help our listeners understand it a little bit. So I'm taking my maintenance guys that are on the property to spend time on this app on Iris to look at individual problems with a tenant.
That's
correct? So the tenant has to be in their unit and my maintenance guy has to be in the office, right?
And that's why we allow the scheduling. We kind of like channel them to be able to schedule. So it's good to kind of contrast it to what happens today. So what happens today is a service request comes in and it says my toilet's leaking, my toilet's not working, right? And your people, the first thing they do is they get the service request, they try and make a phone call. So the resident may be at work, maybe they goes to voicemail, they're trying to coordinate to get some information. These days, we hear that residents don't want people in their units unattended, and service techs don't want to go, maintenance techs don't want to go to units that are unattended. So It's kind of like becoming very complicated to do this on an ad hoc basis. There's got to be some coordination. So that happens right away. And that back and forth costs you time, costs you resident experience, and it costs you money.
Got it.
Then, okay, we land at a time with the resident says, okay, yeah, I'm available. I can be there Tuesday at 1 p.m. for you to come up and look at the unit. So the resident's now taking off time. So they're pissed off. They're not working. It's vacation day. Come take a look at the unit. You get there, you don't have the part. Right? Oh, I got to go get the new toilet seat or whatever. I got to go to HD Lowe's. I'll be right back. So now they go to HD Lowe's. Maybe they go to the supply closet if the toilet seat's there or the toilet flange or whatever is available. They're running back and forth to try and solve that problem. And they get back to the unit and it's a couple hours for to solve the problem. And they've got the part and now they can solve the problem. What could have happened is they could have taken a look at that problem instantly from remotely. They could have identified the part that needed to be applied, that needed to be fixed. They could have tried to troubleshoot it. So not getting there and troubleshooting right away. And then they show up with that, that toilet flusher and they fix that problem right away. The big difference being that being able to take a look at the problem first, even if that service request comes in and the first thing you say is, hey, can I take a look at the problem? You're enhancing your ability to be able to solve that problem remotely. So thinking about being remote first instead of on-site first. And right now, the industry is largely on-site first.
How qualified does the maintenance tech need to be in order to help troubleshoot that problem with the tenant. And here's why I ask, could you have a offshore VA
That's
that
stage two.
is
That is
okay.
step two. So they do
Yeah.
not need to, because they are just troubleshooting, and we provide all the guides. So our successful customers seek to remove intake and triage to the lowest cost possible resources for the lowest possible risky work. You're not going to have the resident like changing the wax ring on a toilet. You're going to have them triage the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and determine what's the best course of action first prior to dispatch. So we are ideally built for that exact scenario. We get a lot of pushback from maintenance coordinators, maintenance techs that feel like their job is being offshored. But at the end of the day, we make the analogy or the analog to telemedicine, right? Telemedicine changed the way we consume medicine.
Absolutely.
All low. You do not go to hospital for an earache anymore and wait behind the guy with the broken leg. But the broken leg goes to the hospital. That is a tier 3, tier 4 issue. The earache gets managed remotely. And that has completely changed the way medicine is delivered. And this is what we're applying to maintenance. Maintenance, if we take all of those tier 0 and tier 1 issues and offshore them to someone and then our system also has built-in guides so they don't go kind of off script. Follow the script, follow the lines, and then solve the problem first, and then dispatch. We solve the problem of getting eyes on the problem. That's what everybody says. Every tech I talk to, they say, that's great. I've got my work in my current state. I get my work order. It comes in. Toilet's not working. And they say the words out loud. I need to get eyes on the problem. I got to go to unit 402 to get some eyes on the problem. They use those words because they know that with vision, they can understand what's going on. But with words and with maybe a telephone conversation, let's sprinkle in some language differentials there. It gets very difficult to do your job if you can't see the problem. And then if you think of the problems in terms of like there's small problems, there's tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 4, you start seeing that 80% of your issues are tier 0 and tier 1s. And you're spending full fare for tier 0 and tier 1 issues that are 80% of your issues. And so the problems.
So what kind of cost savings can I look at? Obviously there's a capital outlay for the program and the software. Yeah. But what kind of a cost savings as a operator can I look at on my maintenance budget?
Sure. So if you take a look at your maintenance expense right now, we've been hearing from the market typically floats between like 8 to 9% of net rent. Is that consistent with your budgeting?
Yeah, I would think we're probably at least 9%. I have to go look at my cash flow statement, but yeah.
So if you think of that as your current maintenance expense, 8 to 9% net rent, we can get it down to about 5 to 6% of net rent. So you're looking at about almost halving your maintenance expense. So, let's call that a 2 to 3x improvement on your maintenance expense, and your resident CSAT goes up because they're getting their problem solved faster. And so those two things begin to work together, that you get a lower variability of your renewals because your residents are happier. You need less people because you're not let's acknowledge that these people are overworked right now. There's 60 hours of work for a 40-hour job, right? And so let's take that low risk, full fare task, move it off so that they can focus on the complex items, the make readies that they need to be on site for. What we're used to kind of thinking in terms of the constraints of written text and spoken things over the phone. We've all played the game telephone as a kid, right? We all know that things get mixed up. And like if you go into even further about human brain study, human brain is really only good at retaining 10% of what we hear because we forget. And then the human brain is only good at remembering 20% of what we read because we've got to do some comprehension work there. But if you can see it, that's like 50% of what we're built for. And so you think about like how humans work, and that saying, I need to get eyes on it. So let's build software that helps people get eyes on the problem.
That's it's a very interesting solution to an issue. And any multifamily operator, I don't care if you own a 4-unit or you own a 400 unit or 4,000 units, has that issue, has a maintenance issue. And I see where this could be very productive for the maintenance team. And so 2 things I would look at solving with my issue, right? One is lowering the cost of those repairs. And 2 is increasing the productivity of my maintenance staff. I said earlier, if I get 5 hours of actual work out of these guys on a daily basis, because they have to drive a mile to a property and jump in the car, and then they have to go 2 miles to Home Depot or Lowe's to pick a part up, come back. That's lost opportunity.
NOI. It's lost NOI. In straight language, we create NOI by removing unproductive expenses.
Right. And we all know that the greater the NOI, the greater the value of the property.
That's right. So you think of a cap rate of 5%, if you can put 3% on your NOI number, that's a massive return.
Huge return. Hey, I appreciate being here today. Tell, how would you, what advice would you give an operator today with their maintenance issue?
Take a look at so hopefully you have a system that's tracking your work orders, right? And just run a list of this week's work orders and be critical about the descriptions and say, could I have solved this? What was this? Take a list of this week's work orders and rank the issue 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it a 0, meaning it was user error? Was it a 1, a user error with a little bit of complexity? 2, I had to be on there to fix a problem. 2, 3, something damaging, something, like a risk, something significant was going to happen, fire, smoke, ice, right? And 4, the building was on fire, right? But rank them and consider that you're spending the exact same dollars to solve a 0 as you are solving a 3 and a 4. And how does that change your mindset in terms of the problems that you have before you?
Yeah, I love that. You are spending the same amount of money to solve a 0 as you are a 3 or a 4. Yep, no doubt about that. Hey, thanks for being here today. I appreciate that. Could you tell people how they reach out to you and get a hold of you so that they can call with their questions?
So if you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm pretty active. So Guillermo Salazar at IrisCX, at IrisCX on LinkedIn. My email is gsalazar at iriscx.com. Of course, you can find us IrisCX on the web. And those are the best 2 places to get a hold of me. And I would love to kind of hear people from 2 sides of the coin. I love hearing people say there's no planet where this can be successful. If you think that I am full of it and we're full of it, tell me why. That's where I get to learn more. Like, one thing, and we may have chatted about that, is the no's create the yeses. If you don't get no's, you're just on your own. And so if you're full of no's on this, let me know. I would love to hear it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here. Hey, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. If you want to hang out in the back room for a minute, you and I can wrap up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Hey, everybody, that was a great episode today. And, I'm going to tell you, if you're an operator or you're thinking about buying a multifamily and you're going into the business, take a look at this system. I'm going to spend some time and figure out in my own application if this system it can be fruitful for us. And as an owner operator, trying to increase your NOI, trying to grow your bottom line to increase value of your property for resale, this could be a system that might work well for you. So reach out to Guillermo and see how Iris can solve your maintenance issues and increase your NOI. Thanks for being here. If you're a passive real estate investor, I want to invite you to take a quiz. Let's see what your risk tolerance is. We have a offer for you. Text the word investor to 224-269-6700 and take the 10-question quiz. Let's take a look at what your risk tolerance is and whether you should be investing in alternative investments or keeping your capital in the stock and bond market. But take the test. Hey, look forward to seeing you next week. We're here all throughout the week. We're always bringing great content to you. And then Saturdays on Multifamily Unplugged. Don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of help. Appreciate you. Keep scaling your business and look forward to talking to you soon.